Welcome into the latest Mac and Mose. Andy McNamara joined by the editor-in-chief of GoDucks.com, Rob Mosley. We're here to discuss Oregon's loss this past Saturday against Stanford. It was 52-27. Coming into this one, we expected the potential anyway for Stanford to be able to run the ball effectively, and that was going to be a big challenge for the Oregon defense. And the way things started in this one, the Ducks, fell behind early. They gave up some really big plays in the rushing game, and for a time, Stanford looked like an old Oregon team where they're scoring quickly and often, and it was unlike Stanford. But Christian McCaffrey, the line for Stanford, everything that I guess we expected or hoped wouldn't happen, kind of did.
Yeah, I got to tip my hat to Keller Christ because. Keller Christ, the Stanford quarterback, because I really did not see their offense being as two-dimensional as they ended up being. You knew Christian McCaffrey was going to be a handful, particularly for this Oregon rush defense and how beat up they've been and playing in a new system. And he was all of that and more. But the fact that they had, they could be kind of multiple, as they say on offense, with Keller Christ throwing the heck out of the ball, really made it a tough challenge for Oregon. We thought, hey, if Oregon could get the ball, try to score, get up early, get them out of their comfort zone, that would be the Ducks' chance. Not only did the Ducks not take advantage of getting the ball first, but Stanford looked like they might have had enough firepower to keep up if it had been a shootout, even in the best case scenario, as we thought it for the Ducks. So, just the next step in what's been a really tough season for this, and just some fatal flaws that this team can't overcome.
Watching the stats as this game unfolded, there was a long stretch of the game, and even the final numbers, when you looked at total yards, they were very similar on both sides of the ball, for each team. But Stanford still able to build that 3-touchdown lead right off the bat, 21-0. Some Oregon turnovers really played a factor in this one. They had 4 of them. 2 interceptions by Justin Herbert. I will say, though, that both were just tremendous plays by the Stanford defense. They weren't, they really were not instances where Herbert threw it up for grabs or made a poor decision. The second one, he probably should have thrown or was trying to throw to the outside shoulder, and he didn't. But the player for Stanford still made an unbelievable play on the ball. But against the way things are going for Oregon right now, you cannot afford to give the opponent any extra possessions, and they gave them 4 in this one.
Yeah, we've talked all year that this team's margin for error has been very slim. And then when you fall to 3-6 again with the loss to USC, suddenly your margin for error is gone. They had to play perfect. Was that in the cards? No, the way things have been going. More instances of getting down in the red zone and then getting backed up by a penalty, or a guy misses a block at the absolute worst time, some drops, the timely turnovers. You look at the yardage, and Mark Helfrich made this point in his press conference Sunday after watching film of the game. When you put up that kind of yards, you just expect mathematically it's going to lead to more points, and it didn't. It just speaks to the timeliness of the mistakes this team's making, and just the gross quantity of mistakes that it's making as well. I mean, it's just course corrections mid-season haven't taken place. They've needed to be dramatic, so that was a lot to ask anyway, and they haven't taken place. So the writing's been on the wall for a good month now about where things are headed, and that seems to be how things are playing out.
Well, on a positive note for Oregon, they were able to extend their FBS best streak, 20-plus points, 40 straight games now. The Ducks have scored 20 or more points now. That doesn't help you a whole lot when you're giving up 40-plus. But
there's some fans out there who think you're trolling them right now just by even mentioning that.
But no, it's not an easy thing to do, and despite the struggles, the Oregon offense still finds ways to score. And on the bright side, I mentioned Herbert's 2 interceptions, but he had 2 touchdown passes. He looked, he was under duress a lot in this game. Wasn't getting a whole lot of help from a protection standpoint, and was still able to come up and make plays. Some drops, key drops early in the game that just really added to the whole momentum shift. Farrell Brown had a wide open first down that he couldn't haul in, and then bobbled a ball along the sideline that would have, in both cases, the Ducks had to end up punting on the next play. But Herbert puts up the yards. He's got 15 touchdown passes right now. He doesn't even qualify for the Pac-12 leaders when you look at the league leading stats, they have top 10 lists that they put out every Sunday. He doesn't even qualify because he hasn't played enough. Yet he ranks fourth. If he did qualify, he would be fourth in the league in touchdown passes at 15. The second touchdown he threw to Charles Nelson, I mean, he reminded me of Andrew Luck. He's got Nelson. The window to hit Nelson between two defenders. Nelson had a step on the defense, but to work that ball in there to a smaller receiver, it's not like you could throw that ball up and have Charles go for it. I mean, he had to put it right on the money, and he did. In a game that things were not going Oregon's way, and mentally he could have let down maybe at that point. We haven't seen any of that from Herbert. He's really kept his composure, and that bodes well going into next season.
That was something else that Mark Helfrich cited on Sunday, is that something he was proud of, is the way that there were some mistakes too. Herbert did do some good things. He also had the interceptions. Sometimes the offense got off the field without scoring points, and they were really impressed with how he bounced back and would look ahead to the next possession or next play, whatever it was. So, he's showing some mental toughness that way that you need to endure a season like this, but that's going to serve him really well as well. He continues to be a bright spot in a desert of a few bright spots, unfortunately, the way this season is going. Again, Troy Dye post-game comments were again really impressive about how, I'm not even worried about the fact we're not going to a bowl game. There's still a lot to play for, which is just, proving to ourselves that, we've got enough pride to put it on the line 2 more times and go out there and battle together. Mark Helfrich is, in the wake of that game, has not been shy about saying, "Hey, listen, we're the team that goes to Utah is going to be a team of 70 guys that wants to go to war together." So I'm kind of interested to see what the travel squad looks like next week, because I get the impression maybe there's a sense that, hey, there's a core group of guys that are willing to keep fighting this out and battle this out, and those are the guys we're going to move forward with, and there might be 1 or 2 guys that have decided, hey, the writing's on the wall, and that's really, unfortunately, sapped my motivation a little bit. And so, again, I'm interested to see what group gets on the plane next week.
Yeah, especially now at 3-7, where you're no longer eligible for the postseason. And yeah, if it's a coin flip, well, this guy might have more talent, and we need the potential for that talent to help us win the game over the next guy who might not, but lays it all on the line every day in practice. So yeah, that's a really good point. Troy Dye continues to impress. Definitely on the defensive side, he had a sack, had a couple of tackles for loss in this one. Troy Dye is a true freshman. He is the active career leader on the Oregon Ducks in tackles for loss. That blows my mind. Yeah. Brendan Schooler, true freshman, tied with Tyree Robinson for the active career leader. And this is on this year's team. This is not obviously all-time or anything like that, but of players that are currently on the roster, he is tied for the active lead in interceptions. So, there's some building pieces there going forward on defense that have been really impressive. And it's unfortunate, I think, for them, because in a more normal year that we're used to, certainly, they'd be contributing. And I think they would probably be getting a little bit more attention for how well they've played. But that's just not the case this year.
Yeah, and vastly more important is the fact that, again, they're establishing themselves as respected leaders on this team. Between Herbert and Schooler and Dye, those are guys who say all the right things publicly and do all the right things privately. They're the guys who need to be setting the tone for this team as they go into this next offseason. So the more cachet they can build up through their play these next couple of weeks. And so, when they go into winter weightlifting in January and February, and into spring drills in April, and then back out for summer workouts in June and July, they're the guys making sure everybody's motivated and showing up and getting everything out of those workouts, because that's a critical time in the development of a football team. So you have to continue to be encouraged by that. I've talked about how kind of the writing's been on the wall with this team for a month. And unfortunately, from a record standpoint, that writing is negative. But that's one of the positives that's been on the wall for the last month. Those guys continue to, they don't bow their heads. They continue to fight. They continue to set the tone. And so to the earlier point, those are 3 guys that'll definitely be on the plane going to Utah. Because they're doing the right things. They're keeping the right mentality.
Well, speaking of Utah, that's up next for Oregon. 2 games remain, and they're both on the road. Always a tough environment at Rice-Eccles Stadium. It's at altitude. It's loud. The fans really get into it, and we saw it last time. Joe Walker saved the day for the Ducks with the crazy 99-yard fumble return for a touchdown that sort of brought momentum back in Oregon's favor. It was all Utah before that. So this is and that was a team that ended up going to the national championship game. So this is a huge challenge for the Ducks. It's an 11 a.m. kickoff Pacific time. That's 12 p.m. Mountain time. So locally it'll be 12, but for those of you in Oregon and on the West Coast here, 11 a.m. on Pac-12 networks is the scheduled kickoff time for the Ducks and the Utes. And Rob and I will be back later in the week to preview that one. In the meantime, if you have any friendly comments you'd like to share with us on Twitter, we always appreciate those. I'm at McNamara UO. He is at Duck Football. Until next time, we'll see you.